All right, when it comes to strategy, our Monday trio are the aces in the game, and they're here to talk about pot, taxing changes in the government's direction, and a new entry for the next political dynasty. Greg Weston is with Earnscliffe Strategies Group, Michelle Austin with Summa Strategy, and Marianne Carr with Environics Communications. Welcome to you all. Nice to have you back again. Mr. Weston, I'm trying to get my head around this. Pot, but when we get to 2019, is this going to be something, a feather in the Liberal cap, or are they going to want to put it out there in the window as a promise made, promise kept, or is it going to be a liability? There seems to be mixed messaging coming out of here.
I think the government strategy, Don, is just to roll this out as quickly and simply as they possibly can. You heard Anne McClellan talk about edibles. You know, it doesn't make any sense not to have those licensed at the same time, but they just don't want to do anything. You know, they've just shoved all that to the side and said, look, we're going to just get, if we can get stuff, anything selling out there, that's good enough for us and get going. So I think they're afraid that this will become a circus, that if it's not managed well and it does become just one of those free-for-alls, I think most people say, you know, I'm not that, pardon the expression, I'm not that addicted to this subject.
Oh, bad. Marianne, I mean, curious, like they're back a week early. Is they just trying to put the pedal to the metal and get this thing through so there can be some distance between legalization and their election?
Well, I think one of the key things is that this government has set a very ambitious goal for July 1st, 2018, and I think many are happy to see them back early. I think if there's one thing, in my humble opinion, is that many other jurisdictions, like in the United States, have warned to take their time and get this right the first time. And perhaps the biggest concern right now is we have provinces coming out with a variety of regulatory frameworks. You saw Ontario last week announced that they're going to open 150 LCBO type like stores. So, and then you have other jurisdictions who are focused on privatization. So
right.
The question is how is this all going to fan out in July 2018?
Yeah, good, bad, or ugly. Let's see. Okay, what do you think, Michelle?
Well, it's all a little hazy.
Oh, that's one. How many more?
Well, as we get into the weeds on this issue, no, this is a literally pot of gold for governments in terms of being able to grab revenue. But it's very important to the Liberals, I think, because it contributes to their change narrative that we want to do things differently. This is something that Stephen Harper never would have done. They're a little bit flummoxed because the Conservatives are generally supportive of this, but it carries through on an election promise. And it also, it's something they need to do. They need to have a win. And so the Health Committee, which is super busy, has decided to come back early and get a few things done.
So they're not going to, reputation's not going to go up in smoke.
No, they're totally lit, just like this panel.
Okay, so it's... This is a joint effort. All right, moving on. Let's move on. Bill Mourneau has been a bit of a charm offensive, if that's possible, for Bill Mourneau. He's done some TV interviews and radio interviews to try and sort of calm down this tax revolt, if that's what you want to call it, from doctors and farmers and a lot of other small business people are coming out. And I guess I'm curious, I mean, does he have to amend this thing? And if he does, would you do it? How dramatically would you do it, Michelle? I mean, do you say, look, anyone under $150,000 isn't affected by these changes? I mean, what do you do to make this sellable and not look like you're just taking an attack on the middle class?
Well, I think it is done. I think these changes are coming. I think that Mr. Mourneau will tweak some of them. To the extent, I don't know what it is, but one of the things that is in his toolbox, if you will, of things to do is he could also drop the small business tax rate while clamping down on these individual tax issues. But, you know, this cat is out of the bag. I think that this is coming and Canadians are going to have to adjust to it, especially small businesses. There's no turning back, I don't think, for the Liberals on this. They truly believe they're doing the right thing.
Do you have to soften it much, Marianne, do you think? Or do you just say, look, we're going to put up with this thing and get it through come hell or high water?
Well, I don't think a lot has changed since last week. I think there's still a lot of misinformation. I think they haven't told their story clearly for the reason why they're doing this.
You're agreeing with her, obviously, Greg. Okay.
This is an understatement.
Yeah, and I think perhaps his biggest critics are caucus. There are a number of MPs who are still addressing phone calls from the electorate saying what's going on. So.
How do you change, though, without looking like you're just responding to public protests? I mean, do you just realize you're going to, or Michelle seems to think they're just going to push full speed ahead and not change much. Do you think they are? Would you advise them to if you were their strategist?
Well, we saw that with the taxing of healthcare benefits. They definitely scaled back on that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they made some minor tweaks, but both Minister Mourneau and the Prime Minister are sticking very firmly with this.
Yeah.
I think they just need to learn how to strategically tell their story a bit better on why they're doing this.
This is a failure to communicate. Is that what you're saying, Greg?
It was a terrible communications exercise. The first thing, Don, and we've talked about this before, if you go out with a message that says that people who have been playing by the rules and playing by the laws are tax cheats, is not going to be very popular. People feel as though they've been branded for something that has been done for years, and by the way, was created as a way of supporting small business.
Exactly.
So that whole messaging, it's kind of hard to retreat from that after you've called people names to come out and say, actually, we didn't really mean that. Well, then why are you doing this? So they've got themselves in a jam. I agree. I think at the end of the day, they will push ahead with this because it is a wedge issue for them. And the more times that doctors and lawyers get out and scream poverty, the more I think drives their middle class vote. As a piece of policy, it's terrible.
For $250 million, that's what they're saying, $250 million. It seems like
It's
pretty
pure politics, Don. So,
Well, but they need the cash, right? And that's what I think you're seeing in the marijuana as well. Tax marijuana, bring about these changes. They need money to pay for their programs.
$250 million. They spend that
Over
before
5
the sun
years?
comes
Lunch
up every
money.
morning.
Oh, you guys and your rounding errors. This is meaningful money to small businesses.
All right. Okay, so I'll bet you they change it more than you guys think. So what do I know? You guys are the strategic geniuses. Let's quickly talk about a new name that's arrived on the political landscape. And Caroline Mulroney, Labman, is a very smart lawyer. I got to tell you, I was interviewing Brian Mulroney a year or so ago, and I brought up his daughter because she was doing a fundraiser I was going to, and he said, she's the one. She's the one that's going to be the political picker-upper here. I'm curious what you think, Marianne. Does she promote the Mulroney brand? Is it sort of like the Trudeau brand? Or do you sort of just go on your own merits for the time being? And what's her end game?
Well, I think this is a long-term strategy for Caroline Mulroney. I think Brian Mulroney is very much still viewed as a progressive conservative and has been complimentary of Prime Minister Trudeau. She's already won the nomination, so I think there's no turning back in promoting her name. But look, she's very successful on her own. She's currently vice president of a prominent investment firm. She started a prominent fundraising charity called the Shoebox Project. Regardless of her name, she is a trailblazer and a champion. And I think this is only the first of Caroline Mulroney we're going to see.
Michelle? I know you know her, right?
We need more Caroline Mulroneys in the world. This is somebody who knows what public life is about and who has made the commitment, grew up in the spotlights, understands the pressure, and has decided that it's worth it. And if we only had more women like that, more people generally who go out and fight for the electorate and the civil service and give it a run, we'd be a better country. So kudos to her.
You know, I wonder why she's linking her bandwagon to Patrick Brown, because some people think he's still going to have a chance at losing the Ontario election next year. I mean, is this part of her end game? Says Patrick Brown loses the election, there's a leadership race, and here I am? Or is that too cynical?
Well, Don, I think after you get past the first one, which is why anybody would throw their hat in the ring for politics these days when you're as successful as she is without them, it does. It shows a real commitment, and I think is attracting the ability to attract people to public life is becoming harder and harder all the time, especially with social media. And so we should be grateful that people of this caliber are coming forward. Why she is hitching her wagon to Patrick Brown, I guess that's where she wanted to be. If nothing else, maybe she can give a boost to that campaign because it certainly has, at the moment, is a pretty lackluster party.
Is there a chance he'll lose that election next year?
You never know what's going to happen in politics, but this is a big boost, I agree with Greg, to Patrick Brown to bring somebody of this caliber, male or female, Mulroney or not, into the race.
To loop it back to our first topic, Patrick Brown came out today, basically said if he's premier next July 1st, legalization doth not necessarily go ahead. What? That's not a win, is it? That's not a winning position to take, is it?
Well, but you know, the province of Saskatchewan, bless them, made an amazing submission into this health committee saying the same thing, saying this was not on our dance card. This is not something we feel like we need to hurry up and do. So I don't think Patrick Brown will be alone.
Yeah,
But they don't have a choice.
It's a federal thing.
Yes.
How do you say, well, the legalization's here and not in the next province over?
No.
Right?
The drinking age is different across the across the country.
Oh no, we have different regulations
Oh,
in provinces,
always.
and I mean we've had
It's the federation.
you know across the river there, beer and wine been in grocery stores for 50 years, and it's just now getting to to this side of the river.
Over there.
So you know the provinces don't have to align, but if provinces dig in and say none at all, we're a prohibition province, that will set up a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Man, we were dope today.
Let's say that's only 3 bad puns, so you could
if
do
you
more
can.
than that.
Okay, I'll work
All
on
this
my
reefer
game.
madness is going around. All right, thank you all. We'll see you
Thanks,
next
Don.
week.